So we'll just flash away there as we're talking. Some of the material may overlap. I'm sure you've already been through that. Actually, you had a bunch of interviews yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
What kind of things have these people, most of the Japanese, been asking you since?
I've been really actually impressed. I've just come from like 6 weeks in the United States, and much more sort of in depth and less kind of superficial. A lot of people sound like they have listened to the records, and we're not just another band in full time. I mean, I realise there is obviously tons of crossover questions, but I must say I've been impressed, much more impressed than my wife was. She also did a lot of press, and nothing was more like, you know, promos for Funky Tomato, and she couldn't know that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I imagine when you're in America, it's pretty much always the same thing. When I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I listen to...
Is that your phone?
Oh, no, I mean, that's the common game there. I'm on a radio station, I'm sure you hit. But one of the things a lot of people talk about is the way they listen to the music very seriously here.
Yeah.
And
they do take it as an art form, no?
I imagine you're going to hit with a lot of the questions you hadn't quite expected.
Well, both here and in Europe and France and Italy, you know, journalists are very sort of, you know, straight into the heart of it. You know, I like it because when we make music, we don't actually think why we're doing it. God knows why we're doing it. We're just doing it and, you know, loving it. And then someone can ask you a question and it provokes a sort of train of thought. And when you're answering, you're thinking, hell, that's right, that's how it worked. And so you can learn something. Which is, I meet a lot of bands who, you know, they say they go on tour and it's just sound check, interview, blah. I suppose if you want to look at it that way, you can. But you'd soon get really, you know, pissed off with that.
You say you don't think about it much. There's not much of a conscious effort behind making the music. So is your approach to lyrics more phonetic than message-like?
No, this sort of so lyric-wise, there's a lot of thought. But I mean, in the actual, I'm not saying that we don't think about it.
Yeah,
we do. But the real, I don't know what the real sort of motivation is. We obviously don't think we're messengers or spokesmen or something, but well, like everyone else, you know, if you know you're taken in and you seem like develop opinions and you put them down. Not to say that next year you find them totally redundant and rather naive, but and then there's other things, you know, you look at them and think, that was quite sharp. I was only 21 and I'd made this astute observation.
Not having seen you live, I'm not quite sure yet, but you see Sparkle in the Rain is a lot like your live approach. But, you know, as the last interview said, it was like listening to a different band. I mean, my honest first impression upon hearing it was that, Christ, I didn't know they had it in them.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, and that was also a lot of the approach from people only knowing the records and coming to see us live. It was like, hell. I mean, I saw us, you know, you would see us on TV and maybe, you know, you see us in amongst a handful of other bands with the same kind of setup and you assume that it's going to be a certain way. But we've been on, you know, in festivals after heavy metal bands and things like that and had much more room.
Is that right?
Yeah. I think there's a real solid and traditional background to us. I mean, a lot of the bands who influenced me were people like King Crimson, Yes, Genesis.
Progressive background then?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Listening to your voice before Sparkle in the Rain, you sound more like you're singing on Brian Ferry lines.
I like Roxy music very much too, and the Doors. And I like people who didn't have that obvious sort of rock and roll cliched voice. I liked Lou Reed, and then on a more commercial thing, people who are doing rock but are rock with a sort of atmosphere. I liked Mark Bolan, David Bowie, yeah, Peter Gabriel.
A whole mixed bag then.
Yeah.
It's just that they're crooning on New Gold Dreams, almost like Avalon Part 2.
Yeah,
If you'll pardon the comparison.
No, I think we've done things that have been much more Roxy music than New Gold Dream. I think New Gold Dream is very much like a Doors record. Some of it. But
just out of curiosity, I imagine you're probably about the same age as me, 25, 26.
Yeah.
When you were a teenager in Glasgow, what did the average rock listening person do for fun? Are there a lot of concerts there? Do most of the big fans make it to?
Yeah, a lot of them didn't make it, but so when a concert did come, everyone went, and you went no matter who was playing.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was, wow, there's a band. I was pretty fortunate in as much that, I mean, the radio in Britain at that time was really pretty garbage. But I was fortunate as much that I had older friends who were putting music my way that I couldn't hear here on radio, some of which I already mentioned. So I was, whether, the rest of the people in my class at school would only have the radio, I had all this kind of underground movement, the Velvets, a lot of sort of Euro rock as well, and Can, and Norway, and a lot of German bands. And I also had, records from people who were only an import in Britain, like Alice Cooper, and so I obviously felt superior to everyone else in my class. But that was only because I had older friends just around where I lived, and I would see them walking around with, pile of records under their sleeve. Just a sort of pile, a stack of records of all these unknown bands. And you're like, Alice Cooper, who's that? New York Dolls, Stooges, Iggy Pop and stuff. And I think it's really important because when you're young, you carve your identity out from the rest of the pack by getting these obscure bands.
So you were sort of a musical renegade back in your teenage years.
Yeah.
So you would like talk and live and breathe music then?
Could
say that really.
Yeah, that and sports.
I hear, like in especially a town like Glasgow, which is an industrial city, right? It must be like a real either music or sports. It's one of the two, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah.
Everybody's a footballer, right?
Yeah, that's it. Or a boxer.
Or a boxer.
Yeah, it's that's exactly it.
Do you feel yourself like ever alienated from that type of a mentality?
Yeah, I felt because I was reading, I started to read books and no one was reading. Anyone from James Joyce to, I had this thing, the other thing about Glasgow being an industrial background, you're brought up to, I don't know if it's conscious or not, but you're brought up to think that all you'll ever be good at doing is, perhaps building ships or, putting bricks together. Not that that's not a great thing to do for someone who does it, but I don't like this thing of this is the only thing you can do. There's a stigma that, say you wanted to paint or you wanted to write poetry, then you've got, no, you can't do that if you're from Glasgow, you've got to come from, Vienna or Paris or Rome or one of the more, artistically rich cities. Of course, that thing's been broken down now, and thank God. But my dad was like that. He always, I knew from early on that sort of ignorance. I used to think that ignorance really did sort of breed slavery, and I hated my own ignorance. So there was always this thing to try and self-educate yourself. Or I would stay off school, flunk school, and go to the library. because I just didn't want the books they were giving me. But it wasn't that I didn't want to learn. I did, but there was no challenge. That was a kind of fight Alice had. There was only one theatre in Glasgow, and no one in the housing scheme where I lived went. And if you said to anyone, I'm going to the theatre, it was kind of like, are you queer or something? You know, this is a man's world sort of thing. But I'm glad to say that that's been broken down. Few people like ourselves, and a lot more. There's people in Glasgow now who they come and see us, and they really identify with what we're doing, and they know the streets we're from, they know the schools we went to, and they know there's nothing special there apart from maybe a determination. And they probably see us and see themselves and think, well, you know, if that jerk can do it, I can do it, and they're right as well.
What do you think made you think this way? I mean, is it from your father, or do you have some role model around you when you were?
Yeah, my father.
Is that right? What sort of thing does he do, or did you do?
He was a bricklayer's labourer, and he still is. But he always this internal conflict, and I could see it. I grew up with it. He knew there was more to himself than that, but he sort of left it rather late in the day. I think it's a problem with most people. They would like to do something, but they think I'm not. I remember when I was young as well, that, you know, you'd hear your parents say, "Oh, your cousin's very talented because he can draw or he can play the accordion," and you think, well, I can't do these things. I'm obviously not talented, and that's a terrible way to bring anyone up. I mean, it's a naive mistake parents make, but I think I was lucky. Ever since I was young, I would write little stories and never show anyone them, keep them to myself. And I never admitted I was writing until I was about 16, and I just said, damn it, I write. I mean, you know, the grammar and things could be terrible, but I also had a vivid imagination. And if you've got that, then, you know, that's something. And so I think that. I think also the background we came from breeds a kind of madness, because in Britain there's Glasgow, Belfast and Liverpool are the same kind of like cities. The cities by the water, the chief industry is shipbuilding. Half the city's Catholic, the other half of the city's more kind of socialist. It breeds a kind of madness. It also breeds a kind of romance.
What do you mean by madness?
Oh, internally, you know, I don't know, where's the rest maybe?
There's always a friction.
Yeah, there's you know, the other sort of British thing is, you know, if you've got a problem, this sort of public schoolboy is to contain yourself and sort it out. But in these cities, it's like
More explosive.
hell breaks loose, yeah. And so you just get up and do it.
Have you had much feedback from the kids with that? I mean, are they all want to be like Jim now, or what is it? You say things are changing.
I think we're as popular as any of the Scottish football team. So, but there'll be a lot of them who think we're jerks too, and that's. But it's still something to. The main thing is that they know that you don't have to come from Vienna or something. I actually. Down up there, they're behind us like hell. The fact that we've stayed there as well, it's also like, oh, this must be a good place. because these guys could have moved away, and you know, and they haven't. And yeah, I think it's because absolutely everyone else from Scotland has moved away, even our football players. They get on, they do well, and then some English team or some Italian team or German team comes and offers them a lot of money, and they have to go. But we've stayed there, and I think we've also helped sort of, and I mean the political way too, because I just think we've really helped out. There's really bad problem in Glasgow as well. You know, heroin is starting to come in. That wasn't there when I was young, and we've always made a real kind of stand, and we just tried to install some pride, a pride that only sort of usually comes out when Scots people are drunk. You call it bravado. I think we've helped. But luck's been on our side.
Well, there seems to be a lot of other bands. For a while there was a Gillette, Scottish band who were in for images and bells and
Orange juice.
Orange juice, right, exactly. And that is sort of stopping in it, sort of this lulled sense.
No, it's not actually. There's that generation of that. God, it's a generation. That's only last year.
Yeah, it's already
that was a label type thing. That was one label. No, there's more than ever. I mean, whether they're good or bad, to me it doesn't really matter, because when we started there was no one. But it shows now that a lot of people think they can do it. But it's not a scene. People spoke about it being a scene as though everyone was sort of hanging out. But to be honest, I've spent so much time touring that I'm there when I stop, but I'm not. I'm lost the authority on it.
Is there any feeling of identification? Do you feel any sort of identification or a desire to even support these bands, the younger Scottish bands coming up? Even drag one along on a tour.
Oh, we've done that and stuff. Yeah. Well, Endgames was one. Alternate Images, we gave them their first few gigs. Orange Juice had played with us, Skids. But I wouldn't do just that. You know, if a Japanese band sent me a tape and I thought it was great and it could come to Britain, then you know, let's do it. I believe in the nationality thing to an extent, but I'm not. Yeah.
What do you think about a band like none of the Scottish bands really put, you know, wave any flags or anything, but you have a band like Big Country who kind of is playing up that we are Scottish?
Yeah, to be honest, I think that's a bit false, because they're not. They are portraying a side of Scotland it's kind of portrayed in Hollywood. You know, Lassie, you know, your granny's Highland home and stuff. Glasgow is a jungle, it's a metropole, it's not hills and heather and, you know, Highland cattle. You know, it's a city with a mass unemployment, you know, and it's a city where a lot of desperation. It also has a glorious side to it too. So I find Big Countries, to be honest, I wouldn't be too hard on them. Their heart's in the right place, I think. God, I sound so patronising, you know, I say that, but I do think they're being a little, you know, the Scottishness is it's a bit like the scarf, it's a little too much on the tourist side.
But then again, you know, what's that fellow's name? Stuart. He gave up wearing the part-time stuff because he said it was false.
It was false?
Yeah.
He
stopped wearing it all.
He was born in Manchester.
Good.
None of them were born in Scotland, although they'd probably kill me for saying that. But even if he moved up there when he was 1 month old, but it's kind of funny, all that. I don't know. I find it, the sort of proof of the country will come with the second and the third record.
It's interesting, they're using Steve Lillywhite a second time around. You wouldn't think of doing that?
We wouldn't think about it just like that, as a matter of fact. We would have to have 5 or 6 people and really think Steve was, there was something more to Steve.
Do you think there's any danger in using him second time around? Like being, once again, pigeonholed in the big country U2 club?
No, we're not afraid of that. If we were a weaker band, then that would be a burden. That's a jacket you can strip, because we go out and play live, and there's absolutely nothing between a big country concert and a Simple Minds concert. There is something between a U2 concert and a Simple Minds concert, but that's called passion. No, things like that don't really affect me.
More producer talk. Why is it you started out with John Leckie? Just out of curiosity.
Because at that time his name cropped up and with a lot of pretty interesting bands. He wasn't a guy who was having a lot of hits. In fact, he wasn't having any.
With XTC, you was doing XTC?
Yeah, Magazine, Public Image, Bebop Deluxe.
Right.
Bands who were, not doing the norm. So, to be honest, when we made the first record, I didn't even know what a producer had done. I had a sort of idea, but I wasn't sure. But I did know that John Leckie's name cropped up in all these records, so he was a point of reference.
Was it more the record companies doing their own then?
No, even then, I haven't found record companies. They come up with ideas, and obviously, if you accept them, they like it because they feel involved. If you snub them every time, it's so a funny way of working with record companies. It's a bit like a child, If they can't make you do something, but if you don't do it, they can kind of get you back. It's like a Cold War. But I found we got on pretty well with our record companies, and they trust our judgment. We have arguments, sure, but no, it was ourselves.
Is it true what your bio says that you had a falling out with Arista because of the non-commercial nature of the music?
I think more because of the I think more because of the lies.
Lies?
Just lies. Yeah, you go into the building, and Arista was going through a change, and no one was really sure who was doing what or something. So every time you'd and to see someone would say, well, yeah, okay, I'll do it tomorrow, or yeah, this is what I think, and we'll do that. And then it would just, no one would really just say, there's no one on your case here, because there wasn't anyone there. They were going through a transition, and heads of departments were changing, and no one was calling the shots. And instead of just saying that, I don't know, you just get kind of sort of back chat.
You jumped. It was a case of you guys jumping ship then.
Well, we were just about to get away. Our contract was up. Our contract was coming up, and we thought, great, we'll get dropped and we'll be, scot-free. Just as it came near to getting dropped, we started to get mentioned more and more in the papers, and I think finally someone in the building thought, hang on, this band might be worth something, and so they wanted to take an extension, and we looked at them and said, it won't be worth it because we really will split up. And they we started to get mentioned more and more in the paper. Finally someone in the building thought, hang on, this band might be worth it. So they wanted to take it. And I said, it won't be worth it because we really will split up. they believed that, so we had to buy ourselves out of the contract.
Is that right? To change the subject here, is it true that before you were married, you were voted most eligible bachelor in Scotland?
Yeah.
What was that all about?
I don't know.
Who did it? Who was behind that?
The national newspaper.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think they had a Valentine's Day, and I was lying in bed, and my mother came up with a newspaper and went, "Look, God."
It's funny, man. Had you already known Chrissy Hines at that time?
I'd met her about 2 weeks before.
It was kind of a real whirlwind thing, as the story has it.
Yes.
She said, or you said or something, you guys just were in the same hotel or something, kept on brushing by each other.
Yeah.
How did that end up in a marriage, though? I don't understand.
Well, I don't know really. It sounds kind of crazy, but I think I'm a fairly like sober person. I'm not. It sounds like a typical sort of crazy thing too people in rock bands would do. But no, I believe I met this girl, and I didn't want to move in with her and work with her and sleep with her. I wanted to marry her. I believe in marriage. And what are we going to wait for? Wait for something to go wrong? I don't think so. Why not get on with it? Take the bull by the horns.
Has she resigned herself for life in Scotland?
No, we're still on tour. She'll have her place. Obviously she has as much a life as I do on her own thing. So that won't be a problem just now. In fact, we're going to be so busy working. But she loves Scotland.
You seem very young to be, you're going to be a father in how many months?
In March.
In March? Well, I mean, how did the two busy musicians bring up a child?
Well, Chris is already bringing one up.
Will she take the child on tour?
She has just now, and it's not the greatest way, but what is the greatest way as long as there's a lot of love there. And the baby has been young. The baby doesn't know if it's in Glasgow or Tokyo. As long as there's a lot of love there, and my mother worked in the factory when I was young, and we saw her much, and yet it seems I have a great setup with my parents. We'll do it.
You're pretty confident that, even when the child is ready for kindergarten and grammar school.
Well, that'll be really. Who knows what we'll be doing then? What we do is so. It could go on for 20 years. It could go on for 1 year, or whatever. We're like that.
So by ear when it comes along.
Yeah.
Getting back to the music there. There's always an instrumental to each album.
Yeah.
Who's behind that? Why?
I think that comes from what I was talking about earlier about, great music also brings the visual and picturesque, and you get some pieces of music that you just know don't need a voice. They're talking on their own, some of the best film themes. I think it also goes back to progressive roots as well.
You participated in the composition of those pieces?
Yeah.
Is that right? Do you play an instrument originally?
I play a little bit of keyboards, but I wouldn't jeopardize anyone's hearing. But I'm pretty good at saying the guys play a bit and say, no, what have you done that there and put this there? I've always, looked at things in detail, and I do it, with someone's shirt. I think, why did you put the button there, or why did you move the cross there? So I think that's the way I participate.
the credits, all the compositions are credited to the band as a whole now, right? Where it used to be different.
Yeah.
You should, I think, what you and the guitarist did the music and then you did the lyrics.
Yeah.
Why has it changed?
That's just been sort of the good things how they developed. We began the band, the guitar player and myself. It was our band, and as we went along, everyone else was encouraged, and it's just evolved.
Somebody mentioned to me not too long ago that you were labeled as part of the New Romantics thing. Is that true?
I think maybe in the beginning, but everyone who had the synthesizer was, I think.
Yeah. Boy,
Yeah.
You had stuff like Visage, Duran Duran, I guess. Back in that too. That was something you got away from very quickly.
Well, it amazes me how, we could be part of that, or so it seems we could be part of that, yet on the other hand, we're part of a big country, U2 thing. I mean, they just don't seem to, I think, to be honest, it was some laziness on the general side.
Well, of course, the association with U2 and the big country, I think, is more due to Steve Lillywhite than the nature of the music.
Well, the U2 thing's been going for 2 or 3 years, so I don't know.
What do you listen to now? I mean, you said you grew up with just about everything, and millions of obscure records as well as all the big groups coming to go out.
Yeah.
How about now? How did you fulfill your musical thirst?
Well, last night everyone went to see the Pretenders. I listened to Bob Dylan. I listened last night to the Psychedelic Furs. I listened to part of her record because I haven't heard it for months. I wanted to listen to it again, see what the production was like. And I listened to part of a Mick Jagger interview that I had improved.
What is that?
Someone gave me it. There's no reason why. I don't know why they gave me it, but that's what I listened to. I listened to everything from the Doors to the Supremes. People say there's lots of different musics, but to me there's only 2 kinds of music really, and that's good and bad. That's really nice.
Has there been any one musician or group that's had like a decisive effect on you that you've always revered, looked up to?
Oh, I kind of a love-hate things with most bands. I love them and I can look back and say, I was terrible and hear it a year later. This is the way it was. I don't know. It's kind of it changes when you're in a band because, to be honest, some of the magic's taken away. You know how they got these rhythms sound, whereas before it was just a record, you took it out the sleeve and you put it on and turned it up. Now people's listening to records and, he engineered that and he produced that and, listen to the fairlight here and listen to the sounds on there and did you notice there's no hi-hat and forget it, I want to just give me the record, You seem to be in a real age of solo members from groups putting out solo records. Watching your own case, it seems like you would be more than prepared. In other words, you do the melodies, you do music. I love being part of a team. I love being part of a band. I think it gives me a security too. I love people around me. That's why I love to work with producers. That's why we don't produce our own stuff. Even though I think there's a couple of people in the band who would be probably good at producing other people and things, but God, it must be hell of a lonely when you do those things yourself or call all the shots. I love being part of a team, although probably sitting here for the past hour and a bit I've sounded very individual.
but I do. I love being part of a team. Or I love being told, no, that's wrong, Jim. Or that's right, or that's great, or that's crap. I do.
You have absolutely no desire maybe to work with completely different people. Just change the setting and then bring out maybe a different strategy. This hasn't occurred to you, huh?
No, it's not. People mention it a lot. That's because this band is a friendship more than a band.
Do you think it would be a slap in the face to do something like that?
I don't really think of it that way. I just don't think I would be very good at it. I don't think. I just don't. I think I need these people despite how I sound and how I talk. I don't think I'd ever do anything without them. I meet people who have been in bands and they say, how can you been playing the same guys for 6 years? How can you do it? And they talk about their own experience, how they were in a band and they get bored with the guys for 2 years. I think that's wrong. I think their problem was they didn't break the ice. It wasn't so much they get bored and run out of ideas. We've known each other for years, and I'm constantly amazed how much we can both inspire and disappoint each other. It really keeps you going.
One last semi-silly question. What about the possibility of musical collaboration with your wife? I mean, you're both going to be sitting around the house and she'll pick up a guitar and start singing.
I don't know. I really don't think so, but then I don't know anything anymore. If anyone said to me last year you'd be married, and I would be like, get lost. She stopped singing last night. She was singing something and I joined in and it sounded pretty awful.
Have you actually lived together anywhere? I mean, you just traveled together so far, right? You've never really established an actual home.
We've had a few weeks here and there.
That's it. Well, anyway, thanks a lot for the time.
No problem.
I
enjoyed it.
I look forward to the concert.
Yeah.
Show it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And anyway, good luck.
Okay, Steve.